What's going on, everyone? So, the reports came out from Jake Fisher and has really picked up traction. Talked about the report with the Utah Jazz, but there was two other teams that were in the mix of that report as well, and it was the Brooklyn Nets, who I made a video on, kind of talking about is that the better package, and then the Atlanta Hawks, which is the other team that I want to talk about today, because the Atlanta Hawks supposedly want Jalen Hood Schifino. Why? You could argue, well, they're a young team, right? So they're kind of moving in that young direction. It's kind of one of the reasons why Trey Young is kind of iffy on sticking around, but he has like zero market right now. Like no one even like put in an offer for Trey Young. Now, is that something that could maybe change at some point? Could it change eventually? Really big possibility. However, Atlanta's kind of in that like Atlanta's just, again, at best a play-in team. They're not winning anything. They're not going anywhere, right? So if you can just kind of continue to stack young talent, right, like Jalen Johnson, you see guys like him, and now you have Riz Shea, and you have these guys that you're really like are the future of the franchise for the Atlanta Hawks. Trey, figure out what you can do. If you can trade him at some point, I could see Atlanta trading him at some point. I'm not saying it'll be today, tomorrow, or anything like that, but I could see them trying to move off of him and just getting as many assets as you can at some point. Or, if you can't, then you're kind of stuck with him. Luckily, he's young enough to where, even in like 2-3 years, if you kind of go through this like kind of rebuild, retooling, that maybe, he can kind of still stay in, if he hasn't walked and just left in free agency at that point, right? And maybe you can kind of get back to the conference finals, get back into that contention status. Obviously, they traded DeJounte Murray. So they have some young talent, like Dyson Daniels, like I said, Riz Shea. They got Johnson, who he's over here just like lighting it up. He just had 29 the other day, right? So Utah is a team that has good young talent, and they have some vets. They have some pieces that actually make some sense for the Lakers. So I could see something where, because it wouldn't just be able to be just Jalen Hood Schifino, because he just makes so little compared to the guys that we would make sense from Atlanta. So it'd be a more expanded trade, more expanded deal, unless they just want to like get Jalen Hood Schifino, right? So like, let's say Utah's kind of like, we're not really big on Jalen Hood Schifino. We'd rather have like, 2 seconds or something. And Utah's like, or Atlanta's like, sure, we'll give you 2 seconds. Like maybe something like that. But I think more likely than not, it would be some type of setup trade, right? Like just straightforward Lakers, Atlanta. And look, maybe you could get something done, right? Maybe you could still do a Walker Kessler deal. The idea is like Jalen Hood Schifino plus assets, first round pick swap. Remove the protection, Jalen Hood Schifino, boom, get Walker Kessler, and then you could still go make other moves. You could still go make other deals. Or, you could still do guys, stack a couple guys, like give them like a Maxwell Lewis and like Jackson Hayes or something, and then same assets, because that's really what Utah wants, just the assets. And then now you have Jalen Hood Schifino that you could package, clear the roster spot, and now you can go make a move with a team like the Atlanta Hawks. Question is, what does Atlanta have that makes sense for the Lakers, right? Well, you have a couple options, in my opinion. I think you have, obviously, the Trey Young, which, like, that was, like, heavily talked about. And also, like, Kendrick Perkins on, like, national television basically said Trey Young was going to the Lakers in the offseason, and that never even happened. Like, that didn't even become a thing. Is it one of those things that, like, look, I've talked about Trey, like, if it happens, sure, I'll be happy, I'll be excited. Him and Anthony Davis make a lot of sense long term, but I've always maintained I have concerns about Trey with LeBron, right? And the style of offense that JJ Redick is running. Is that really best for a guy like Trey, where he is the offense, he is the engine, right? Leads the league in assists. He's done it the last few years, right? He is 25-12. Right, he's willing and dealing. He's the engine. He's the motor. He's the guy that's doing everything, right? He's the high usage guy. Where JJ Redick has that free flowing. You don't necessarily need a guy willing and dealing. Like, yeah, it's nice to have. It's a luxury to have. Like you even see D'Lo in stretches, kind of willing and dealing. But more often than that, you just need somebody to initiate, get you into your actions, and then kind of play the right way. Now, would he buy in? And be like, hey, I'm playing with LeBron, I'm playing with Anthony Davis, so like let me play my role, let me play my part, possibly. And then also he would know, like, well, LeBron's only going to have so many years here left. And then when he departs, right, now it's me and Anthony Davis. And then at some point, Anthony Davis will depart. Now this is my team type thing. And now I get to be the guy for the Lakers. Sure. I don't see the Lakers trading for Trey Young anytime soon. Right? Maybe in the offseason, if like things just go like disastrously bad and Atlanta just kind of wants to get off of him, maybe. But I just think more likely than not, that ship is probably sailed. I could see Trey being on the Lakers post LeBron, right? So like if LeBron does another 1+1, he retires in 2 years, and now Trey is a free agent, I could see him maybe making his way to the Lakers. But beyond Trey, right, you have Clint Capella, right? Talk about him in a moment. You got a guy like a DeAndre Hunter and a Bogdan Bogdanovic. Those are kind of the three guys that kind of come to mind that go, okay, those guys make sense for the Lakers. You wouldn't be able to really get all three, but you could technically get two if you wanted to, right? Because like all three are kind of in that like 18 to 20 million range, right? So you could essentially get two if you wanted to for like the price for like a Zach LaVine trade or something like that. Also helping Atlanta get off some salary and stuff. I don't imagine you trade a bunch of picks. I don't think any of those guys are worth a first. So could you work something out like that and maybe not have to give up a first and just like Jalen Hood Schifino is added as like a tack on for like, hey, here's a young guy. We'll give you like a pick swap or something, right? Couple seconds. I wouldn't give up a first for any of those guys. Maybe Hunter, but like he has his injury concerns. His contract really isn't the greatest for his type of production. His defense is kind of sus at times. I don't think he's a bad player by any means. I would love to have him, 6'8", sizable forward, but it's just kind of like, is he really better than what Rui's been giving you? I maybe defensively, but I'd rather probably keep Rui at that point. But everything has a price, right? If Atlanta's kind of just like, hey, we kind of just want to get off of these guys, right? Like give us D'Lo and like Jalen Hood Schifino for a bogey or a Hunter. I wouldn't hate something like that. To me, I look at the Nets and I look at like Atlanta and even like Toronto with like Bruce Brown or Portland with like Jeremy Grant. I look at them as the other, right? So I want to do the Kessler trade, even if you get a Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson, right? Like you get something like that. Boom, right? Now I would look to, okay, let's go get a Hunter or a Bogdan Bogdanovic or, go get a Jeremy Grant or go get a Bruce Brown, right? Like all these other teams, like Utah is kind of my hope and main focus in my opinion, right? Like that's what I want. And then I look at all these other teams like, okay, now we got the center, which Clint Capella, sticking on Clint Capella for a moment. I've talked about Clint Capella before. I'm not big on Clint Capella. I don't really he's not the guy he once was. He's still one of the better offensive rebounders, but he's not the guy he was like in Houston. And he's 20 million, but he's expiring. So if it doesn't work, you can just use him as a salary dump. You can basically just like, hey, didn't work. Good luck to you. Or if it does, and he is kind of willing to play that backup role, and like, let's say he's great in that role, right? Well, then now you can sign him to a new deal. Maybe give him like the Valanciunas deal where it's like 3 years, $10 million a year, and you actually cleared $10 million off your books. Now you free up your full mid-level exception or whatever, right? Like I think that there is like, to me, Clint Capella would be like break glass in case of emergency. Like all else fails, there's no one else we could get. Just go get Clint Capella. Type is kind of where I'm at with that, and kind of give yourself some flexibility. But I would just rather, like, there's several other guys that I'd rather have Valanciunas, if I'm being honest, at that point. But to kind of get back to, kind of the add-on stuff like that, like that's kind of where I'm at. So if you get like a Walker Kessler, I don't think you really have a need for a Clint Capella, but Bogdan Bogdanovic makes a lot of sense off the bench. I mean, the Lakers' bench is atrocious. And if Christian would kind of step in, kind of give you some form of consistency in the scoring department, and then you were to add in a guy like a Bogdan Bogdanovic that can give you 18 a night, now you're talking. Right now, it's like, okay, now the bench has, now you got like your 6th and 7th guy, take pressure off of Dalton Knecht. I know there's an argument, well, Dalton Knecht is kind of, you got a guy like him and Dalton Knecht, but Dalton Knecht's still a rookie, right? I'd rather go get the proven guy that is a veteran, that has been there and done that and has been in the playoffs and has done those things and is going to give you some form of consistency, where a guy like Dalton Knecht, I love Dalton Knecht, but he's a rookie. Right? You already see kind of the roller coasters at times, and that's fine. That's part of how the process. Right? No one's expected to come in and being a 20-point-a-game guy right out the gate. Right? It's going to be a little while, but to bring in like a Bogdanovich, also I think he's a guy that could potentially help Knecht a little bit, kind of be like his vet to kind of work with. Hunter, again, I wouldn't mind a Hunter, right? If you were to kind of pull something out, but again, like I said with Hunter, it's like, I'd almost rather have Rui Hachimura. I'd rather almost keep Rui unless you're just getting a better deal somehow, some way. I like the idea of Bogey off the bench, but he's also making like, what is he making? Like $18 million, something like that. He's got like D'Lo's contract. So not really super sold on that. If I'm being honest, I'd personally probably stay away from Atlanta, if I'm being 100% honest. But they're a team that is interested. They're a team that's been linked to the Lakers, not just for Trey, but several other players on that team. So Atlanta, to me, is again kind of like, I look at them as like, if all else fails, everything else fails, like Brooklyn, Toronto, Portland, Utah, like if all else fails, call Atlanta and be like, hey, is there a path to get something done? At that point, sure, I'd be okay with it. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Kind of mixed in the middle? Do you think like, nah, like stay away from Atlanta? Like, hey, Atlanta, you got several options on that team. Is there another guy that you'd like that maybe I didn't think of, or didn't mention that maybe should have gotten mentioned? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.